Welcome back to Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. Today I'm going to be talking about three things: knowledge, the God Code, and a prophecy that was given to me almost a year ago that I think is time to share with everybody now. I want to start with the God Code because this is the thing that's been most on the surface for me personally, and that you might have noticed if you've been to our website recently or had a session with me recently. I have changed my services. I've changed the name of my services, I should say, to the word KEYWORK. And this is important when we're talking about the God Code. We do lots of work in my sessions, okay? We do things like quantum healing, regression, hypnotherapy. We do destiny retrieval, soul retrieval, lineage healing. And all of this healing that we do in these sessions is simply to remove blockages. What happens when we remove the blockages though, right? So maybe 5-7 years ago when we removed these blockages and you didn't need any more help removing blockages, you would simply stop having sessions or maybe just move to once yearly sessions and just go about your life. But now I've been guided into new things slowly over the course of this year that has a lot to do with light codes, your DNA energy, and the whole point of why we remove blockages. There's actually a reason that we heal, and it's not simply to make us feel better. I think that the negative things in our lives are the things that push us into our healing work, but there's something behind this. Why do those things have to happen? Why do we have to have negative experiences? Why do we have to have all of these blockages to begin with just to have to remove them? It's because what's happened when we have these blockages is that we start to feel this urge towards our God spark, towards our key self. It's the understanding that there's something more, there's a contrast. And once we remove those blockages, that's not just the end of it. We remove the blockages and then we want to unlock that God spark within. We want to align you with your God spark within by opening up what I call the God Code. I see this as a very specific part of your energetic DNA that combines all of the energy of the heavens and all of the energies of the earth with love in an expansive type of space that is able to be a key that unlocks this God Code inside of you. You guys may have heard this saying in the past that says everybody has a God-shaped hole inside of their soul. I want to further that. There's not a God-shaped hole. There is a God-shaped keyhole inside of your DNA. And if you don't subscribe to exactly how organized religion calls God, spirit, you have a spirit-shaped keyhole. You have a universe-shaped keyhole. You have a keyhole inside of your DNA that unlocks your full capability, that unlocks who you are on the inside, your ability to manifest, your ability to have oneness consciousness, to see above the din. You have the ability to rise above the tit for tat, the light, the dark, the duality of earth, and reach world peace. This is the mission of the God Code, world peace. What if world peace isn't what we think it is? In the past, we may have thought that maybe world peace looked like ending world hunger. Maybe in the past, we thought world peace looked like all countries getting along. Maybe in the past, we've had a lot of grand visions of what world peace looks like. And I would love if world peace could look like those things, because everybody deserves shelter, safety, love, food, basic needs, as well as intellectual needs being met. Everyone deserves those things. And what if world peace started within the individual, regardless of what's going on? Everything that we teach in spirituality teaches us that as within, so without. Not as without, so within. Therefore, how can we expect world peace to be something that's accomplished by what the world looks like? World peace is accomplished by what our inner world feels like. And then it moves outwards into a physical manifestation. So how do we get that sense of God's self, that sense of God's spark, that sense of inner peace inside of ourselves? And it's by using keys and KEYWORK, light code KEYWORK, to unlock the God spark within, to unlock your God code and activate that and align you with that. And that's something that can be done after your blockages are removed. So I have renamed all of my services to KEYWORK, KEYWORK, KEYWORK. This is not a different service. If you've already been a client of mine, this is not something brand new. You don't need to run and book. You're already working the KEYWORK. You're already on this path, because KEYWORK is simply how I've taken all of my unique gifts and all of my unique trainings and applied them through my guidance for you specifically. And if you've already been working with me, you've been part of building this with me, because we've been trying to get to this together, and now it's fully realized in a way that we can speak it. KEYWORK is actually an acronym, and it means key elevation of your wholeness, origin, remembrance, and knowledge. KEYWORK is something bigger than just healing. KEYWORK is understanding the fullness of everything. It's understanding where you came from, developing your cosmology, removing all of the blockages in between, and coming into a space of understanding from up here, not from that space of duality, from understanding the oneness and the wholeness and the complex yet simple spiral or circle within it. Because your origin isn't just here while this is an endpoint. Your origin and your endpoint are the same. I'm not going to get too complicated, okay? I won't get too complicated. We'll just talk a little. I just want to introduce KEYWORK to you guys because that's the different session that I'm offering. Now, it's my understanding, I downloaded this. The God code, the understanding, it's been something that's been stirring in my system over the past year. It's come to a bubbling surface in November, I think it was, and then now it's fully realized, and I've been getting these downloads like bing, 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 God code, this. So I actually Googled this right before this video to make sure or see if this is something that already existed, and there is a book written by somebody called The God Code. I have not read that book. I don't know who the author is, and I'm not necessarily advocating that book because, like I said, I haven't read it and I don't know if it's even the same thing that we're talking about. But it's very interesting to me that if there were a book that I would have these downloads and then go read someone else having the same downloads, because that speaks of unity consciousness. That speaks of source and Christ consciousness, because that means that this information is there to be had, not just by me, but by all of you, once you reach that space of the unity and oneness consciousness, because that's where all knowledge is held. That's the space where everything exists, and we can pull it down into the now and understand these things now. We have our own personal consciousness, we have a collective consciousness, which is what the world believes, and then we have the Christ consciousness, which is the knowledge of all things that exists within source. And if the God code is a knowledge, is a wisdom that exists within source, it's something we all can understand. So those are my new services. It's just called KEYWORK, and it's moving towards this power. That's what it is. The mission of KEYWORK is world peace. That's plain and simple. The mission. We want to be able to feel at peace within ourselves. and then let that move out into the world. If each person felt at peace within themselves as a feeling, as an emotion, as a way of being, as a state of mind, then everything else would follow suit. We can't depend on a world leader, on a government official to give us world peace. This is something we must learn how to obtain for ourselves. And this ripples outwards, because then the world leaders and government officials who come into power will have that inner peace and not need to take such drastic actions towards the opposite of peace. There's something linear that does happen by unlocking this God code, by doing KEYWORK. And while its mission is world peace, I have found through my personal downloads that there are 3 main keys that we need to work with in order to unlock the God code. The God code, that's my own personal download. I'm not talking about that particular part right now. That's something that exists within you that you absolutely can activate. But the keys are how you get there. The first key is self-discovery. And with this key, we're talking about learning our gifts, stepping into our confidence, and coming into our true desires. Our true desires are not just things that we think we want with our ego mind or our conscious mind. It's what our soul longs to create or to do or to be of service or to have a skill set of. Because these are the things that we're here to do within our destiny or our dharmic path. We get to become, we get to understand our passions and our desires, open them, influence them, grow them. And that's the first key, self-discovery. The second key is the key of origin. This is your lineage. This is your cosmology. This is your past prophecy. When we talk about our origin point and our lineage, we're talking about the places our souls have been through all of its lifetimes, all of the things it's learned, all of the gifts that it's accumulated. We're talking about our cosmology, which is what we believe, where we believe all things originated from and where all things are going. This is your personal belief systems that you get to build, and it's going to be different than everybody else's. These are past prophecies also, because with the key of origin, we find that there were people long ago, whether in our family or just in certain lineages, that had access to that universal knowledge and laid out prophecies that we decided to incarnate into in order to fulfill and become. The third key is the key of illumination. And this is your higher knowing, that oneness, that Christ consciousness, that destiny. It's that higher energy that we've been talking about all along. Yeah, that's a key too. You have to unlock that part of yourself too. And when these 3 keys are unlocked, then we get to the God code. And before we do those, we have a lot of blockages to remove. So in our sessions, whether we're working on past traumas, healing past lives, whether we're working on timelines, whatever it is that we're working on in your personal sessions, you have been working towards the unlocking of your God code, the alignment of you and your understanding of what you're here to do and who you are, because only you can do what you came here to do. And you get to stand in your own power and remember who that is. So in that remembrance, Spirit came to me in the waking hours of my dreams and said that this is the secret of the butterfly. The secret of the butterfly is the KEYWORK. It is the God code. It is the transformational change that's bringing us towards world peace. This brings me to a prophecy that I had. Now, I had this prophecy close to a year ago. I don't remember the exact date, But it came to me very unexpected because I wasn't in session for myself. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't trying to get information. I didn't have any particular thing on my mind, which is why I think it was such an important time for this prophecy to come. In fact, I don't get a lot of prophecies. I work with timelines, meaning that I can see certain futures or certain possible futures, but it's not very often at all that Spirit just drops an entire prophecy in and says, okay, here's some knowledge. What do you want to do with it? And that's what happened. I was actually in session with a client doing work for them. And all of a sudden I was sidetracked and showed this entire vision of the future. And it was a nuclear war kind of future, guys. I'm talking about, I was in the United States. I walked outside into this vision where the air was toxic, everything was destroyed, it looked like things had been bombed, and there were these parasitic creatures everywhere. And I had the knowing in that vision that these bombs had come from Russia. Now, because I do timeline work, I sat in this vision and I said, what do we do? How do we fix this? Where do we go from here? And I saw a young girl wearing red. Now, I've had this vision many times since the original prophecy, and she's wearing something different, a little different each time. In the original prophecy, I believe she was wearing a red scarf. And then the next time she had on a red hat. Either way, the way I know how to find her, because most of the time when I see her, it's in grayscale, but I know it's this little girl each time because she's wearing something bright red. So I've been calling this the prophecy of the red scarf. I don't know if that's something, again, that already exists within this consciousness, but that's what I've been calling it since I had this vision. I was shown that that little girl had to be influenced by all of the light workers of the world, that all of the light workers of the world had to rise up, because if enough of us rose up, it would make a big enough wave of change that it would influence one child. And she would grow up to be some sort of political public speaker of some sort, and she would be the savior. She would be the one to stop this nuclear war from happening. So this really hinged on the light workers like you being able to shine your light, being able to be big, being able to use your gifts confidently, to know what you're here for, to stand in your power. And all year I've been preaching this. Since last year, I've been preaching this because I knew how important this was. And many other psychics and healers all across the world and all across YouTube were getting that part of the message also, that light workers had to rise up, that we had to create a connection of light workers across the world. What they may have been missing is the why. The light workers rising up weren't necessarily going to be the thing that stops our government, that stops the wars, that stops all of these other things. Is the thing that influences the person who will grow up to be the key to what we need to end this stuff that's happening, to end this nuclear war between the United States and Russia. I also saw that what would happen instead is that Russia and China would both turn its backs on the United States, and that they would become allies. And we would feel, I want to say, somewhat rejected. And I'm saying this because it's not like they suddenly hate us and then it's us against them and there's another war. But it's more like, let's look at our politics right now, just for a second, right? Our relationship with Russia, we diplomatically have an uneasy cooperation. We don't trust them, and we don't like the Ukrainian war. But we're not fighting each other, right? Same thing with China. We kind of have this tense rivalry, adversary kind of thing with China over national security, over trade. And it just feels very tactical, our relationship with China. And so I think that this part could be fairly easy, honestly, because what reason at all would China and Russia have to get along? They both want a reduced U.S. global influence. Both of them don't want the United States to have as much of an impact and influence as we do. Our historical economics, aside, Russia and China kind of stay out of each other's conflicts. They don't really mess with each other too much. But nothing makes a friend like a common enemy. And what I was seeing is if that little girl rises up, that would happen. Russia and China, they'd get along a little better, be a little bit more buddy-buddy, and we would get the cold shoulder. That doesn't mean war. It just means like the diplomatic, I don't like you kind of thing. We're not going to work together well. But when Russia takes its focus off of the United States and finds someone else to focus on, this little girl comes up through those cracks. She rises up and she creates a political influence that changes life as we know it for the good, for the light. Everybody right now, our focus should be on shining the light, creating global light influence for this little girl to rise up so that she can hear it, so she can grow in a society and a community that's teaching and preaching these things because she needs to hear it. So fast forward a year later, I've been sitting on that prophecy since then, simply teaching that light workers need to rise up, to come together, to connect, to shine the light. Fast forward a year later, and suddenly I'm pulled back into this vision. And this time, I'm being guided to actually journey to the little girl. Keep in mind, this little girl is about 7 years old at this point-ish, about that age. And none of this is going to happen for another 15 to 17 years, according to the prophecy that I've been given. She's an adult when she rises up and comes into power. And when she's in power, she is loved and adored and inspiring, and her voice alone can activate these light codes inside of us that bring us the light. And she's out there making public speeches, and she's advocating, and she's protesting. And this is who I see her to be in the future. To me, she looks like she's of Indian descent or some sort of Middle Eastern descent. And she lives in the United States right now, somewhere in the northern part of the United States. That's where I see her. I'm not good at geography. I keep saying that, but maybe I'll have to learn it at some point. But I see her up there somewhere. So suddenly I'm drawn to, okay, well, let's astral project to her room. It's time for you to give her a message. And I was like, what? No, I'm not giving her a message. I'm not going to go creep into some little girl's house as a spirit and talk to her. Again, Spirit had been preparing me for that moment. 2 days before that moment, I'd woke up and heard the word birth. Other people, some of my associates, had been seeing me with a female baby or giving birth to a child. So I was like, okay, all right, I get it. Maybe this is something I'm supposed to take on to help give her this message. So I found myself traveling to her. And when I did, I stayed and allowed myself to hover on the surface for a little while just to observe and watch the environment. When I got there, it was after school, her time, and she was in the front yard with her dad, and she was in trouble because she had bullied somebody at school. Keep in mind, she's very young. And I expected the dad to just lay into her. Bullied people bully people, right? And he didn't. I was so proud of him. He knelt down and he was talking to her, and he was talking to her about the importance of connection and oneness and support. And it was beautiful watching him talk to her. But he did have to punish her. So he sent her to her room, and that's where I flew in. I went into her room, and I was supposed to give her the message that she needed to grow, to work on certain things, that she needed to work on her public speaking, her intuition, and to know that she's supported. Because her public speaking is going to be the gift, the tool that she needs to really bring out those voice light codes and influence the world. And her intuition is going to be the thing that helps drive her into knowing the best times, the best places, the best words, where to use those light codes, where to use these gifts. And to know that she's supported is going to give her that steady foundation so that she knows she can do anything and that the world has her back. And Spirit wanted me to give her that very specific message, what she needs to work on, and to know that she's supported. And I get there, and she's terrified of me. She can see me, and she's very scared. And I had a lot of feelings about scaring a child in her bedroom in the middle of the day. But she had this little table and these little kid chairs, and I sat down in the little kid chair and I said, look, I'm here to talk to you about your future. And I'm talking to her, and she's sitting in the other chair. She's looking rather limp, like a rag doll. And I'm a mom, and I'm fairly nurturing. So I was like, come here, darling. Come here. It's okay. Don't be scared. And I was hugging her and patting her back and giving her the message until I realized that what I'm hugging really is limp. And it's a life-size doll. It's not this little girl at all. And I'm like, and I look around, and the little girl's on the other side of the room, and she's hiding under the bed. And I look under the bed, and she's on this side of the room. And this keeps going on for a minute. Like, I can't pin her down to talk to her. I can't get her to stay still. I can't get her to focus and to be with me. She's like teleporting all over the room. And I was finally just like, okay, you got the message, you heard my words, take it or leave it. And I left. I popped on out of there. And as I'm leaving, I can look down and see the scene below me. And when she no longer sees me, she started crying for her parents. And they came in and comforted her. So I did have feelings on my end of being the scary spirit woman that came in, although it was guided that she needed to hear those particular words. What I like about this vision is that I understand her gift better now. And I feel confident that she is the one. Because when she was afraid of me or didn't understand me or know who I was, she was not easily taken. She was tricky. She was quick. She was able to just teleport around that room. She was able to get away, to change my reality, to keep hers safe. This little girl, she's going to be something. She's going to be something. Her dad's teaching her kindness and service and interconnectedness, and she is tricky. She is tricky. And she has light codes in her voice. So this particular prophecy, it tells us what we need to do. It tells us not to worry about those powers going on over there on the other side of the world. This prophecy tells us, shine your light, because this little girl will grow up, will have a global influence, and will change the world. And if this is happening all at the same time that we're working on our God code and world peace, can you imagine what the world will look like in 25 years? We all want a quick change, right? We all want things to be better and to be different now, right? Our president is attracted and respects power. Everything that this has been guided towards so far has been around the respect of power. The only way to directly headbutt power is with power. And that's the problem we're running into. You can't, well, you've heard that. You can't fight fire with fire kind of thing. You have to fight fire with water, right? And while that might take a little bit of time, the butterfly promises us that it will completely transform the world, that the world is capable of peace, that the world is capable of tapping into oneness, unity consciousness, that the world is capable of a wave of influence. And your only job right now is to work on yourself and your peace, opening up your God code with the KEYWORK. Your job is to shine that light as brightly as you can, as loudly as you can, to make as much influence as you can with your light, not with your darkness. And things that make you triggered, that make you upset, that make you angry, that's you bringing more darkness. You have to be able to shine the light, the happiness, the joy, the positivity, the passion. Notice I didn't necessarily say positivity, because we're allowed to be passionate. We're allowed to know what kind of change we want, but we have to do it in a way that actually brings influence through light, not through the dark. And this brings me to knowledge. We talked about the prophecy, and I'll continue to update you on the prophecy because I have a feeling that we're going to be doing some work with this little girl at some point, right? Like, politics aside, right and left wing, red and blue aside, we're all going to be doing some work with that little girl in some way or another. There's going to be light influences, angelic influences, your influences on this particular thing. And just knowing that you can work on yourself and get to that point of world peace, that it is possible in our lifetime, that's mind-blowing, guys. That is absolutely mind-blowing. It's possible. And that brings us to knowledge. Because what's the other thing that people say? Knowledge is power. I've sat with this a while because knowledge is part of KEYWORK that I downloaded. It's the K, the last K, not the first K. It's the last K in KEYWORK is knowledge. I work very closely. My closest spiritual ally is Archangel Uriel, who gave me the upload of wisdom 5 years ago. Archangel Uriel, the angel of knowledge, the angel of intellect, the angel of influence. There is power in knowledge. There is a crown of knowledge. Think of those chakras. We don't want to only work up here. You know, I talk about that a good bit because we want to work in the root space. We want to have those strong foundations. But the last K, the higher thing, the end game, is that crown of knowledge. I mentioned briefly in another video how collectively as a society we're unlocking the 7 seals. And each seal corresponds with one of our chakras. Right now, collectively, we're working on the 5th seal, the throat space. And this is prophecy. This is light codes through the spoken word. This is the keys right here. These are the keys coming out of this 5th seal. And we have 2 more to go as a society, not just individually, but as a society. You hear lots of light workers right now saying, we're moving into the 5th dimension. We're moving into the 5th dimension. Yeah, we're unlocking the 5th seal, that dimensional space. We have more to go, But where we're going has something to do with knowledge. If you think of how you wear a crown, it goes around your third eye and your crown chakras. The crown of knowledge is our ultimate power of light. And there are two parts to this, because coming up, think about Adam and Eve, right? Back in the Garden of Eden, they have this entire story or parable about how you can't eat from the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And once you do, you're thrown out of Eden. Okay, so that tells me that political daddy doesn't want me to know anything and wants me to stay ignorant. But if we were to also look at this as a parable, how true is that? That ignorance is bliss? That we can be happy living exactly how we're living if we don't know that any other way of living exists? That we can be happy right where we are if we don't know any different? Knowledge, my friend, is a choice. It is a free will choice. Knowing the difference between good and evil, deciding to know what evils exist, deciding to know what lights exist. These are all free will choices. Some people only choose knowledge of light. Some people choose knowledge of darkness. Some people choose knowledge of both. Some people don't choose any knowledge at all because it feels unsafe and they'd have to change themselves. But knowledge is where our power is. And I understand you have to be careful choosing the types of knowledge you want, because knowledge in and of itself can be heavy. If you choose knowledge of a certain evil, if you choose knowledge of what humans are capable of, you're going to see a lot of things that you wish you didn't know. Very heavy things, very disturbing things, things you have to accept about human beings and probably accept about yourself, whether things you've been through or things that you're capable of doing. There's a lot of heaviness to knowledge that brings you out of peace, out of your inner paradise, where it's easy-ish to be at inner peace without that knowledge. There's also something about knowledge that destroys our simplicity, and simplicity is a gift. We want to be able to live simply, to let everyone be fresh and new every time we meet them. We don't want to know too much about anybody, because then it changes our mind and it starts to control the way that we think and the way that we feel about things, rather than getting to live in the present moment, which is the third eye space. The third eye space teaches us to live in the present moment, separate from our emotions. It's the truth. It is the truth of what's happening in this present moment. And how does that relate to what we choose to know or not know? Can we choose knowledge and have the power of knowledge without letting it influence our inner peace? That's the key work right there. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing this is key work, front and back. The knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge is so important. You can't rule without a crown. And you can't wear a crown without putting it on your head. These are things that we learn in metaphysics and things that we also learn in religion. Some places, knowledge is purely frowned upon. They don't want us to know certain things. They don't want us to get these secrets. They don't want us to learn how to do things. You can think of all the suppression in the past, whether it be of certain races or certain genders, and not just gatekeeping things, because they want that knowledge to be for the elite, because that's where the power is. And if everybody has all of the knowledge, there is no longer any elite. There is no longer anything to fight over. So that's my spiel on world peace. We all need the knowledge. But just refocusing and reiterating all of that, because I dropped a lot of stuff on you guys today that's like a power punch. And I want you to walk away from this feeling empowered and enlightened, understanding your role, and that you're here to find your inner light, to shine that, to create influence with that. And just by doing that for yourself, you are creating a world of change. If there's something you're interested in or passionate about or just curious about, follow that for yourself. Learn about those things as much as you can. Soak it up. Because your knowledge is also bringing you power. And what you know about, you can live and experience. And when you live and experience, you now have wisdom, not just knowledge. And when you wear the crown of wisdom, everything changes. I'm Mary Callozzo, everybody. We'll talk again soon. Much love.